Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Audacity Factor podcast. My name is Catherine Daw. I am your host, also the founder of the Audacity Project, to be found on Patreon. Please join me. You can join me for free. There are also two paid tiers. One is the village level and one is the patron level as well. So both of those come with some free swag. If you are one of the first 100 members to join at the village level, you will get some free swag today. See if you can see is one of the t-shirts. Somehow my video camera is doing its own thing, and I'm sure that's a setting of some kind. I tried to fix it, but hey, it's okay. Anyway, now first I want to say I love the possibilities that are in the air right now. And it gives me a lot of hope and a lot of, and it's very energizing. So I hope you all are catching on to that and riding the coattails of it. So speaking of possibilities, I want to talk about something that can be a little triggering because you know what it's about? Triggers. And how we can become addicted to the healing process. We can become addicted to methodologies, finding new methodologies. We can really become perpetual seekers of information. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing. However, when we talk about wanting our lives to be better, wanting to feel better, well, typically we then address some type of healing process, whether that's therapy, it could be and that could be any kind of therapy, whether it's with a trained licensed therapist, it could be an acupuncturist, it could be a massage therapist, it could be a coach, it could be a community like this where we engage in true and real life dialogue and conversations to be able to bring you some awareness, bring you some empowerment, bring you the ability to tap into your courage and know that you're not alone. And I know that was one of my biggest challenges years ago when I was in the very depths of my trauma experience. I was still being traumatized. I was feeling isolated, and I was self-isolating on top of that. It's just, I felt so alone, and I felt like nothing would ever be okay. So that's part of my passion about being here with you, is I want you to know you're not alone. But I also want to help you in any way that I can. Maybe not any way. I have an enabling tendency, and a codependent tendency, which I've had to really become hyper aware of over the years and recognize when I'm about to step back into that pattern, or I'm even tempted, because you will always be tempted to re-engage with a pattern until you have fully learned that lesson and you no longer choose the pattern. Because I am a believer, and you have probably heard me say it before, that when you are done with it, it is done with you. No matter if that's a person, if that's a behavior, if it's a thought pattern, whatever it is, when you are done with it, it is done with you. And that speaks directly to our triggers. How many times do we say, oh my God, that's so triggering. Oh my God, that triggers me. Oh my God, that triggers me. And yes, having suffered complex PTSD from years of abuse, I completely understand what that feels like, because it can bring on, and I know for me, I will suffer from anxiety. And it can come on me severely without me even recognizing what the trigger is, if there even is one. However, I am a believer that it's not just enough to recognize our triggers. Our goal is not to avoid our triggers. Our goal is to dismantle our triggers so that we don't have them anymore. And it may take time, it may not. It may take you several different avenues, it may not. But your ultimate goal is to dismantle the triggers, because what we do, we use our triggers as a barrier and we feel we're protecting ourselves, when in essence, what we're doing is isolating ourselves even further. And that puts us in a defensive stance so that we have to defend against. And I know this one all too intimately, and I still have to practice with this because there are certain scenarios in my life at present that I have found can be triggering. And unless I'm super mindful, I can go back down that path of driving anxiety, driving defensiveness, and driving isolation. And yes, does it take some time, especially if you have kind of acquired a new trigger? You've suffered some new trauma, and it could be related to or similar to previous trauma. That's what it is for me right now. And I've become more able to recognize when I'm being triggered and also not engage it fully so that it doesn't become more tangible. And that's really our goal. We don't want our triggers to become these solid, defined things that can't be dismantled or can't dissolve or can't affect us in the way that is not helpful or healthy for us. So when we talk about the healing process, are there about a bazillion methodologies out there? There absolutely are. And you can immerse yourself in many. I know I've done that. I have studied all kinds of energy healing. I've stuttered. Okay, well, maybe occasionally, but that's okay. That's a part of reality. I do all these off the cuff because I like to discover what's coming to me and through me, even when we have these conversations. Sometimes I'll be inspired by some things that's happened to me or happened around me, happened even that I'm exposed to in some other way. And I recognize that, hey, you know what? This would be something great to talk about. And that's what I'm bringing to you today here in episode 15 of the Audacity Factor podcast. And yes, you can see a little bit of my shirt. T-shirts are part of the swag that I am offering with my Patreon memberships. The first 100 members at the village level will get free swag. Every member at the patron level will get free swag. So this is just an example of something that you could have. And actually, they're really nice. I was a little surprised, I have to say. I'm always a little hesitant when I order online, and it's not something I can actually touch. So I ordered a sample for myself and my husband, and they're pretty fabulous. And they fit really well, which is what I like. Anyway, so I know several years ago, I heard this very thing, that we become addicted to the methods, discovering methods, researching methods, going to another webinar or taking another trainer, whatever it is, as opposed to actually applying the last method that we actually learned. Because again, our goal is to dismantle that protective barrier we've got, and that protective barrier contains our trauma. It's built of our triggers. It's built of our need and desire to defend and protect ourselves. So our real goal, and if you think of it that way, and if you think of something, how solid we can create that, energetically, it's blocking all the things that we want, because we can't just block discriminately. We can't. I tried. Oh my God. I tried to block out any or suppress or shove down, however you want to talk about it. All the uh, drivers of the trauma that I suffered in a 10-year abusive relationship, because all he wanted to see was joy and happiness, and that he was like the shit, and he was like this most fabulous person, when I was just being traumatized over and over and over again. And if I displayed anything other than the joy and happiness and that he was this great thing, then the trauma would become worse. The abuse would become worse. And so I know that's what drives this need. You just want to protect yourself. If I just get smaller, I just won't be such a big target. But all we do is we create this more solid thing with just more stuff that, they can kind of shoot at us. However, what it does is, and again, we can't discriminately block out. We can't. If we're going to try to block our harder emotions, more challenging emotions, we're going to block out love, we're going to block out joy, we're going to block out happiness. It blocks all of it. You can't be selective about it. And I learned that the hard way, until I just felt numb. I felt numb. I felt invisible. I felt like I had no purpose, no meaning other than to act out this play. I felt like a cardboard cutout. That's what I used to call it. Two-dimensional and just blank. Although deep inside, I was suffering severely. So, it's one thing to take on your healing process. It's another thing to make it this behemoth thing that is this just lifelong, where you don't ever get to be the point where you're actually feeling good and great, because you no longer have this trigger. You've sloughed off that protective shell, that constant feeling of danger, wariness, worry, anxiety, which is what it was for me, and fear. That's all built of fear as well. So for you to actually be able to engage fully in your life and access all the joy and the love and the compassion, the happiness, the fun too. Oh my God. Those years for me had almost zero fun. It was awful. And I appreciate fun. I love to laugh. I love to have fun. And my daughter, who was young at the time, she'd say to me, Mom, she says, you need somebody that's fun, somebody that makes you laugh, somebody you can have fun with. And this was from my young daughter at the time. And that was absolutely true. So, but all of those things we don't have access to when we're trying to protect ourselves from these other things. So if you're building a construct that involves places for your triggers, your healing process is on the other side of that. You don't actually get to heal from those things until you dismantle that structure and don't add to it. You can't say, okay, I have to avoid that because it triggers me. Now, I know I will tell you this right now. I have a fresh trigger. And for me, I automatically feel defensive. I need to defend and protect myself so that I don't have to be subject to it. And I recognize myself doing that. And because the situation is something familiar, it's so much easier, seemingly, for me to fall back into that pattern. Now, that doesn't mean I have to engage with what the trigger is or what's triggering me presently, but it is up to me to give less power to that trigger so that I can dismantle it so that it no longer affects me when presented. And that's always my goal, because I don't want to collect them. I don't want to reinforce them. I don't want to re-engage them. I want them to be dismantled and completely dissolved so I no longer have them. So what somebody else does or says doesn't affect me, doesn't create a new trigger for me or revive an old one that I thought was past and wasn't. Can it take time? Absolutely. Our triggers take time to develop to begin with. So it can take time to dismantle them, but it takes your active participation in dismantling them. That is your job. That is the work. That is your goal. And it can be as quick or easy or slow and hard as you make it. It doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to take a long time. But whatever that is for you, that's for you. But it's not meant to be forever for the rest of your life. Man, that cup looks huge from that angle. Sorry. Okay, I just had something pass through my head. I'm not going to share, but I'm sure you can only imagine. I'll have to make this video for over 18. But again, funny, right? Because we need the joy in our lives. We need the fun. We need to laugh. My husband makes me laugh every single day. He is the funniest man I have ever met in my entire life. And it truly has been one of the greatest antidotes to my triggers and traumas, because it makes way for all the love. And I'll repeat this: love does not come in amounts. We don't feel it in amounts. We either feel it or we don't feel it, but it's always there. It's just whatever you have put in the way of it. And it's you. It's not somebody else putting something in the way of it. God, I'm hot. Ah, sorry. I know I'm passionate about this. And this is why I wanted to really share this with you all today. I'm so invigorated and vitalized by the energy that is present right now. And if we can all embrace that, channel it, know that, and for the good, not for the deceptive, not for the manipulation. You already know what it's like to be manipulated. Do you want more of that, or do you want to do it yourself? And there are plenty that thrive on that. That's their sense of being better than, more powerful than. When that's actually not even so. But we can make it so for them when we don't engage our own courage, our own power. And our power and courage is what we use to dismantle our triggers, to disengage from our trauma, no matter how bad it is. And hear me, I understand. I want you to know you're not alone. That's why I'm here with you. That's why so many others are here for you. And this is why we can choose to be together as well. This is why I've started this community. I would love to get it off the ground. So please, please join me. You can join for free. There's free content on the Patreon, free membership, and of course there's additional in the paid memberships as well. But totally up to you to come for free. Find out what's there so that I can then continue to offer you more. And you can always find me here on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. I love being here with you face to face. I want you to be able to see me, see the expressions. You can watch somebody's body language. You know what's real and what's not. Don't kid yourself. We all know truth when we hear it. We all know what's real when we see it. So don't let others convince you otherwise. You can do this. Hold hands with me, because really we're all here to walk each other home. And home, what does that word mean for you? Home for me is always a place of welcome, a place of nourishment. I have a card in my card deck called the Hearth, and that's what I feel when I think of home. A place for rest, a place for nurturing, a place to gain insights and wisdom. Wouldn't you like to feel home, at home in yourself? Wouldn't you love for everything to be a reflection of that, of you feeling at home in yourself? The triggers have dissolved or dismantled. You're taking courageous steps for your own benefit. Self-love is a fantastic place to start. That's where we all need to start, because it's there always. Again, it's just what we've put in the way of it, or have allowed others, we've adopted from others, but it's still our choice to continue to have that or not. You can decide for yourself. You absolutely can. It does not matter what one other person believes, thinks, or says, or does. You get to choose for yourself. You influence yourself. It's up to you to find out what is real and true and aligned for you. Okay, this was a passionate episode. I love it. And again, welcome to the Audacity Factor podcast. Please join me on Patreon. I would love to have you. And let's get the party rolling. All right, I will see you all next week here on the Audacity Factor podcast.